Hey everyone, I hope you are maintaining good health, safety, and sanity as we continue down this long road of what I believe I called in my draft preview video a unique set of circumstances that we're facing as a country, as a planet, just as human beings altogether. Now, I apologize that I did not make this video sooner. Typically I would have. However, the NFL schedule was delayed this year. Typically, it will come out a week or two before the draft. This year, because of the pandemic and whatnot, it was delayed until about a week or two after the draft. So in my preview video, I like to talk about free agency and needs and everything leading up to the draft. And then after the draft, at least this is the approach I took this year, I wanted to be able to sort of encompass everything after the draft, talk about the schedule leading up to training camp, and then obviously preseason, regular season. I think the one concern that fans have, and this is really the lone point I'm going to make about the pandemic and whatnot, the concern that fans have is being able to attend the games, and the NFL has really still been kind of wishy-washy on what they're going to do there, but the fact that they released the schedule, that there was rumors of a specific format where the AFC would play the NFC in the first 4 weeks just to kind of maybe use those games as sacrificial lambs in case they had to cancel games, because those games obviously would not have any bearing on tiebreakers other than just overall record. They wouldn't have any bearing on in-conference tiebreakers, division tiebreakers, anything like that. So the fact that they didn't do that they are leading off, at least the Bills at least, are leading off with 2 divisional games, means the NFL plans on having games. Whether they're going to have fans in those games or half capacity or whatnot, I don't know. My idea for that would be to put half-capacity preseason games because they're all about 7 or 10 days apart-ish, and they're always 7 or 10 days. The last one is always 7 or 10 days before the start of the regular season. So as these weeks go by, you would have time to assess the situation. Now, I personally don't think that you would see dramatic results from a bunch of people going to preseason games, even if they reduce the capacity to half to 20 or 30,000 per stadium. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. By no means am I a doctor, nor have I really studied outbreaks and pandemics and whatnot. I just have you ever gone to a Bills game thinking, well, there's a bug breaking out. I should probably be mindful of that at the Bills game. Or have you ever gotten sick on Tuesday or Wednesday after a Bills game and thought, I must have caught something at that Bills game? I highly doubt it. And mind you, that could be a thing that happens. But I highly doubt that you're doing that, that you're going to the game thinking of that. You should go to the game with an informed decision, based on your own conclusions. Draw your own conclusions, make an informed decision for yourself, for your family, your friends, whoever you're taking to the game, and go if you want to. Otherwise, don't go. I really hope that the NFL, that Roger Goodell, somebody has to do this, has to just say, hey, our stadiums hold bravery. They have to just show bravery. Say something like, as I was just about to say, our stadiums hold 60 to 80,000 people. And we're not going to stop 60 to 80,000 people from coming to see our product. If they want to, they can. If they don't want to, if they don't feel safe, they don't have to. Obviously, they want to make the environment safe for their fans, for their players, for the coaches, for everyone involved. And I don't think anybody has ever not felt safe. Really, at a Bills game, maybe you've gotten into individual arguments, but as a whole, as a group, have you ever not really felt safe at a game? This might change your outlook, and I understand that. So that's why you should have the option of not going. Really, that's what it boils down to me. Somebody in the sports world or in the concert world, the arts and entertainment world is going to have to be brave at some point and say, we're going to allow our fans to be mature adults and make decisions for themselves. And by no means are we enforcing, any type of restriction, nor are we forcing fans to come to the games. Basically, that's, I didn't mean to burn the first 5 minutes of the video talking about that, but it is obviously directly affects us as fans and the Bills and the NFL and all sports around the country, maybe even the world. So with that, we'll talk about the schedule a little bit towards the end of the video. I obviously want to talk about the draft. Round 1 goes pretty smoothly for the NFL. I thought the virtual draft actually went very well for the NFL. I thought they handled it beautifully. They got terrific ratings, obviously, because there's not a whole lot else going on. From a Bills perspective, obviously they're not very involved in that because they don't pick until 54 on Friday night. There was no trade-ups for the Bills. No trade. I don't think they even made a single trade, which is very un-Brandon Bean-like. If you've been following his past couple of drafts, he's made a bunch of trades up and has been wheeling and dealing there. He did say he had a trade with an NFC team later on, and I think a lot of fans maybe assumed that that was to trade up for Bryce Hall, but the Jets jumped in front of him in the 5th round to take him. As far as round 1 goes, some Bills targets that might have went off the board. I don't think Patrick Queen realistically was ever making it to the Bills at 54. Brandon Ayuk might have been a target, but I don't think he was really making it that far. Jordan Brooks, I thought by Seattle, was quite a reach on their part. I do think the Bills might have been interested in him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire went round 1, the end of round 1. Couple corners, Gladney and Noah Igbenogany. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of Igbenogany. If you got that reference. What a name. So, as day 2 unfolds, those are some of the names that just went off day 1 that I thought the Bills might have been interested in. Day 2 unfolds. T. Higgins is still there. DeAndre Swift. Some people thought the Bills might be interested in a running back, but T. Higgins and Swift go 2 of the first 3 picks. Higgins to the Bengals, Swift to the Lions. A popular name on Bill's Twitter, at least, was Kyle Duggar. Naturally, the Patriots take him at 37, the Division II linebacker, safety linebacker. Maybe would have been a little bit of both. Maybe that kind of tweener there. But like I said, the Patriots take him. Gross Matos, the defensive end from Penn State. Obviously, the Bills were interested in defensive ends. They end up taking A.J. Epineza, who we'll talk about in just a second. But Gross Matos, I think, might have been on their radar. Jonathan Taylor, running back from Wisconsin. A lot of safeties fell. We talked about Duggar already. Xavier McKinney went 1 pick before Duggar. Grant Delpit was there. Antoine Winfield Jr. went 44 and 45 back-to-back. Chase Claypool might have been a target for the Bills. He goes 49 to the Steelers. Trayvon Diggs, Stefan's brother, goes 51, 3 picks ahead of the Bills to the Cowboys. He was a cornerback. Cam Akers, a running back. So there's a lot of targets there that I thought the Bills might have been interested in, which certainly didn't make the draft any less interesting because the Bills get up to the clock on 54. They end up picking up Inez, obviously, but I thought they might have been looking at maybe J.K. Dobbins, who goes to the pick after them, the Ravens, which I think is a tremendous pick for them. Christian Fulton, the cornerback from LSU, slipped from what I thought was going to be round 1 all the way to 61 to Tennessee. Josh Uche, who ends up going to the Patriots, of course. Outside linebacker from Michigan. Denzel Mims, wide receiver from Baylor, goes to the Jets. These are all picks after the Bills now. But Epineza, to me, was... you're sitting there, you're like, I think it's going to be Epineza, but it could be any one of these other guys. But like, it just seems like the surefire thing. A.J. Epineza, to me, does not strike me as like a Hall of Fame type of player, but somebody who is just going to be so solid for them at defensive end for years to come. 6'6", 280 pounds, powerful. A guy who can, kind of touching on my previous point about for years to come, who, as Jerry Hughes is on the back end of his career, a guy like Epineza steps in and just sort of assumes that role. As the Bills lost Shaq Lawson in free agency, they added a couple veterans, Quentin Jefferson, Mario Addison. They look like they're set on defensive line for at least for a year or two, but they have a couple of really nice building blocks for the future with Ed Oliver and A.J. Epineza. Star Lotulelei is going to be there a couple more years probably. Then they have a couple pieces that they've added in that they're familiar with, like I said, Addison, Jefferson, Vernon Butler. Trent Murphy's still there. He's on an expiring contract, but Jerry Hughes is still there. So a really nice mixture of guys that have been there on the team, guys that they've added through free agency, and a couple of players that they've drafted. Really excited about the the front seven altogether, even, especially with Edmonds, Milano, and A.J. Klein back there as well. I think the Bills are looking very nice, very deep, very nice roster overall, especially up on the front seven. Round 3 comes, and the Bills go running back. It goes Zach Moss, the running back out of Utah. And the best thing I read about Zach Moss, and it made the rounds on Twitter and everything, was controlled violence. Love to see that. I think he is the perfect complement to Devin Singletary's kind of slash, hit the hole goal type of running style. With Zach Moss, you kind of have, like I just said, the controlled violence. This more in between the tackles, somebody who can punish would-be tacklers, make people miss, just like Singletary can, but also go through people. And that is just a nice. Those are just a nice complement type of running backs to have. For really any type of offense. The NFL seems to be going back a little bit to like the 2 running back system. I mean, a lot of teams are taking, like the Colts took what did I say, Jonathan Taylor to go with Marlon Mack. The Ravens took J.K. Dobbins to go with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson. Now the Bills have Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, and Josh Allen. Where Zach Moss can maybe help them in a way that people maybe aren't thinking about is on the goal line. Like I know that the Bills have Josh Allen, and he's really good at scoring from like inside the 5 or even inside the red zone altogether. But if you get the Zach Moss, who proves to be good at that as well, you can maybe take some of the hits off of Josh, who I don't really want him to stop doing that because he's so good at it, running inside the red zone, I mean. But like on the 1 yard line, let's give it to Zach Moss instead of having Josh snap do this every time and I want to minimize the contact to my quarterback in that regard. So I'm happy to see Zach Moss, 5'9", 223 pounds. I don't want to say reminds me, but I think of this, and I haven't really seen this comparison drawn anywhere. Marion Barber. Remember Marion Barber for the Cowboys? Even they had Felix Jones. So maybe Barber and Felix Jones is like your Moss and Singletary. And that was a nice duo there for the Cowboys for a while. And hopefully the Bills have experienced similar success. In round 4, the Bills draft Gabriel Davis, wide receiver from UCF. Big receiver, 6'2", 216. We thought that wide receiver might be a need for them, or something that they would look at. This is kind of, touching on that point. The Bills have the kind of roster, like I said, it was deep, it's a good roster, where they can afford to draft like luxury positions. Like they don't have to, like, oh, we have a huge hole at tackle, we have a huge hole at defensive tackle, we have a huge hole at middle linebacker, we have to do this, we got to address this before we start taking, the sexy positions, so to speak. But here the Bills are going running back, receiver, defensive end, like right off the bat. And not in that order, obviously, but like the wide receivers, they get you the yards. The running backs, they get you the yards. The defensive ends, they get to the quarterbacks that prevent you from allowing yards. Like these are just, and I know that there's a lot of positions like that. You could just be like, oh, the linebackers get to the running backs who prevent you from getting yards. But that's like pass rushing and moving the chains. Those are like the 2 most important things to me in football: is getting first downs, sustained possessions, and basically 3 and outs. The more sacks you can get, the more yards you can get. Like the more yards you can get on offense, the more sacks you can get on defense, the better. And the more you can stop teams from effectively throwing the ball. Sacks help, corners help. Tre'Davious White, A.J. Epinesa. Tremaine Edmonds in the middle. Beautiful. So I didn't mean to gloss past Gabriel Davis. They go with he's a bit bigger, like I said, of a wide receiver, 6'2", 216. So I mean, he's physically imposing right from the get-go, right out of the gate, and throw him into a really crowded receiver room that'll get even more crowded as we continue down the list here, which I'll address again. Round 5, the Bills go Jake Fromm, maybe surprise people a little bit. Most surprised I've been by a mid-round quarterback since the Bills drafted Cardale Jones a couple of years ago. I was like, oh wow, we took that guy, and yeah, the Bills took Jake Fromm. Ideally, Jake Fromm will really never have to play for the Bills. Hopefully, Josh Allen, given everything that he's been, given everything he's been given really by the front office and the coaching staff, will come into his own this year, make that year 3 leap and just show that he's here to stay. We're obviously encouraged by the progress that we've seen, but we want him. This is like the year. Brady's gone. Josh Allen is in year 3. Like, this is when you're supposed to hit your stride. And obviously the Jets are thinking the same way, and now the Dolphins are thinking probably pretty similarly with a veteran, and they have drafted Tua. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the schedule. But I think the time is now for the Bills. The Bills are the only playoff team, obviously the only other playoff team other than New England in that division. So the time is now. So hopefully Jake Fromm, it never gets to Jake Fromm. But Matt Barkley's on the final year of his contract. Maybe Jake Fromm in 2021 steps up and he's just the backup quarterback forever. Brandon Beane himself didn't really say that he expected to draft a quarterback, but that Fromm was too good to pass up, 167 overall. Allen's physical style of running of playing, his aggressive style, might cause him to miss a game here or there. Maybe Jake Fromm steps in, and it's just a nice guy. It's just an option to have. I think Fromm collegiately peaked in his first couple of years, and maybe was a little bit less impressive this past year. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is incapable of playing at the NFL level. Now, obviously, you could probably have nightmares a little bit about Nathan Peterman. I hope it's not that type of situation, but Peterman came into a situation where he was going to be gifted the opportunity to play, and that's not the case with Jake Fromm, really. Round 6, maybe the Bills' only really reach of the draft. It's just kind of looked at like that, is Tyler Bass, the kicker from Georgia Southern. Now, it might be a reach, but how do I want to word this? Things like kicking matter in a way that you don't really consider when you're drafting. So that when you take a kicker, you're like, well, why would we do that? We could probably just undraft a free agent. You could have, I suppose. But what do games come down to? Like, sometimes small things, like kicking. Like, the Bills, if they had somebody who could kick a 60-yard field goal, maybe they end up in a situation where they're comfortable trying that against Houston. But Stephen Hauschka was so poor from 50-plus last year that it really it shortened their scoring opportunities. It made their opportunities to score smaller because their kicker couldn't really make it from 50-plus. Tyler Bass led the FBS with 27 field goals from 40-plus over the past 3 seasons. So, I'm not going to criticize from that perspective. Stephen Hauschka's roster spot is certainly in jeopardy with the Bills using a draft pick on a kicker. The other round 6 pick was Isaiah Hodgins, an even bigger receiver, 6'4", 210. So the Bills are bringing in these big body type of molds, and those are definitely threats to some of the guys in the room, like the Duke Williams and the Robert Fosters of the world. The guys that are below the big three, or big three, I guess. I never thought of it like that, but Diggs, Beasley, Brown. So I think the Bills look at Hodgins and they look at Davis as like, hey, we can bring these guys in. They can watch professionals at work like Beasley, great route runners like Beasley and Diggs, guys that stretch the field like John Brown, and maybe develop into nice players into their own right. I doubt it'll be right away, but maybe down the road. Like, that's the kind of position the Bills are in. They're so deep at some positions that they're drafting players that they probably really don't have any intention of playing this year or really contributing. And that should be encouraging to you. It's certainly encouraging for me. In the 7th round, the Bills couldn't go without drafting a corner, obviously, because that's McDermott's style, and they take Dane Jackson out of Pittsburgh, who's a pretty good player. For 3 years he played outside of Pittsburgh, but I think that the Bills probably feel he has the versatility to move inside as well, could play nickel as well. So overall, very pleased with the Bills draft. I don't really want to give it a grade, obviously. I feel like I've, over the years, become kind of like, I don't think it's really worth it to grade a draft at this point, just because the players really haven't even had a chance to play. I'd like to see them on the field or not on the field before I can make ultimate judgment on that. I don't even know if it's appropriate to grade like the 2019 class at this point. It's just, but I just wanted to give you reasons to be encouraged, what you might expect to see from these guys, what you might expect to see from the team overall, and sort of or how they fit and into the team overall. And sort of segueing into that is the schedule came out this past week. Bills are opening at home against the Jets. I really the biggest surprise I think to most fans is probably 2 Monday night games. Two Monday night games. 4 primetime games overall, which is like crazy to me. But like to me, even more so was 2 Monday night games. Unheard of. Because like the 4th primetime game, well, it's technically the 3rd one in terms of chronology there. The Week 14 home game against Pittsburgh for Sunday Night Football, that could be flexed out, but hopefully it doesn't, because it would be the Bills' first home game on Sunday Night Football since 2007 when the Patriots came to town and throttled the Bills 56-10. Randy Moss had 4 touchdowns in the first half. I would have almost guaranteed that Kansas City here in Buffalo would have been a primetime game, and it is. It's a Thursday night game in Week 6. I like to break it down in blocks, like spans of 4, and really the toughest span for the Bills looks like Week 9 through Week 13. That's 5 weeks. Obviously, they have the Week 11 bye, but they have Seattle at Arizona, home to L.A. Chargers, and then at San Francisco. They have to go out west twice. Seattle, they'll be good. I'm sure they'll be good, but where is Seattle definitively better than the Bills? I don't mean to go off on a Seattle tangent here, but maybe just quarterback, just Russell Wilson, one position. Where are they definitively better? Middle linebacker, maybe Bobby Wagner might be better than Tremaine Edmonds, who's 21 years old or whatever, and 22, and heading into his 3rd season. Like, I don't know. It's the Seattle love I never get year after year, but they're always there. I still think it could be. I would expect it to be a competitive game. The other week, I guess, in terms of difficulty, that would be my most difficult block of 4. The second block of 4, Week 5 through Week 8, is at Tennessee, who's in the AFC Championship, home to Kansas City. That's in 5 days. That's over across 5 days. That's a Sunday, Thursday, and those are the AFC Championship teams. So you'll get a look at what kind of caliber team you have. Tennessee was fabulous on defense throughout the end of the year. Derrick Henry took over as like a, if there was a playoff MVP, it could have been him. He was vital to their success. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. And then the Bills get him 5 days later. 4 days later? What are we calling that? 4 days later, October 11th to the 15th? Yeah. So you have a road trip to Nashville. You come home late Sunday night. You have Patrick Mahomes on Thursday. Maybe it'll help the Bills to catch the Chiefs on a shorter week. I don't know. Then you get that abbreviated bye, sort of the 10-day rest week to the Jets and then the Patriots. That's Week 5 through Week 8. I'm sorry I'm going out of order. I'm kind of just doing this in terms of degree of difficulty, the perceived degree of difficulty. The end of the season would be 3rd on my block of 4, Week 14 through Week 17, home to Pittsburgh, at Denver, at New England, home to Miami. And then obviously Week 1 through Week 4 is next, logically next. So that's why I think it's important for the Bills. Once again, they got off to a great start last year. They were 5-1. So they have the Jets at home, at Miami, home to the Rams, who I think a lot of people feel like are trailing a little bit, or coming back to earth a little bit. They didn't make the playoffs last year, coming off their Super Bowl season. They lose Gurley. They trade Cooks. They lose Corey Littleton. They might be coming back a little bit, coming back to earth. And then at the Raiders, who we don't know. But I don't know, because they seem like they're not necessarily committed to their quarterback. They're kind of in a weird limbo area. So I think it's a winnable game for the Bills. Obviously, this could all change, sort of pending injuries. But overall, I'm very happy with what the Bills did in free agency, with what they did in the draft, with their entire outlook on the 2020 season. I do think that New England is still a threat to them. Of course, we don't know what they're going to do totally at quarterback. It looks like it's going to be Jarrett Stidham. Miami is going to be a threat. They started 0-7, finished 5-11, drafted Tua. They're on the come up. I like the Jets draft. The Jets got Mims and Mekhi Becton, who was my favorite lineman in the draft. So the Jets should be better. I think they might be hindered a little bit by their coach. Anyway, guys, 25 minutes. This is probably a record for my longest video. I spent 5 minutes spieling at the beginning about the schedule and the pandemic and whatnot. So, I apologize for that. If you came this far, I really, really, truly appreciate you. And you can hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle and YouTube username are the same. Otherwise, I probably won't talk to you guys for maybe a couple of months here, unless we hear some major NFL news over the next couple months, which is possible. Otherwise, I will see you guys in like August or September, all right? Enjoy your summer, and as always, above all else, go Bills.